Christmas at the woodland nook. Once upon a time, there was an ancient wood, home to the oldest and wisest of oak trees. Nestled into the heart of the woods was a charming little tea room, built from an ancient oak stump, hollowed, widened, and coaxed into coziness. It was a haven to the woodland folk, its round windows glowing amber against the blue winter night, its windows fogged with warmth. A wooden sign creaked softly in the breeze. It bore the name, the Woodland Nook, and inside its ancient walls smelt of damp moss, warm bread, and freshly brewed coffee. The Woodland Nook tea room was run by a mouse. Her name was Mabel Whiskerbell. She was a grey mouse who always wore an apron, as she was always happily busy inside the tea room kitchen. And as of tomorrow, she would be able to wear her favourite red bow. Can you guess why? Mabel scuttled around busily, as there was much to prepare for the opening of the tea room tomorrow, as this was no ordinary day. Tomorrow was a very special day. Tomorrow was Christmas Eve. Today, however, was Christmas Eve, and there was much to prepare. The tea room's kitchen smelt wonderful. There was mulled jam bubbling away in the jam kettle, which left a sweet, spicy scent in the air. Sugar biscuits were being iced with pearly white dots to make them look like delicate snowflakes, whilst dough lay lazily next to the open hearth, slowly waiting to rise. Stockings were hung upon the fireplace, and strings of warm lights were lifted carefully. Paper snowflakes were hung from the roof branches, and delicate glass baubles were placed gently on the small tree next to the tea room's door, each one holding a memory of welcome and warmth as it greeted the woodland folk in from the cold and embraced them with their golden glow as the crackling open fire reflected in each of the baubles. Mabel wanted to make the tea room extra festive this year, so she placed a wreath above the door, decorated with pine cones and dried orange slices. She was pleased with her efforts. After a fair few hours of bustling about the kitchen, her tiny apron dusted with flour, Mabel gave the kitchen a thorough wipe down and a mopping of the floor, before taking off her apron and hanging it upon the door hook. Mabel sat upon her wooden rocking chair. It had been a busy day. She poured herself a cup of lavender tea to help relax her into sleep. She sipped it gently. She closed her eyes for a moment and enjoyed the fragrant scent as she gently rocked to and fro, to and fro, to and fro. Soon darkness fell. Mist drew in over the forest, and the embers of the open fire faded. Only the hoot of Hootington the owl could be heard. He was the watcher of the night. So Mabel took herself up the steep wooden creaky staircase and lay contently in her bed. She lay her crochet blanket on top of her for extra warmth. Snuggled and cosy, she closed her eyes and slowly drifted off into a peaceful snooze. The next morning, outside, the sun began to rise, making light beams through the net curtains. The morning air was crisp but damp. It was the result of the mist the evening before. Inside, however, Christmas had already made itself entirely at home. Mabel would make the last of her preparations before the woodland folk were due to arrive late afternoon. Whilst Mabel prepared, outside the clouds turned heavy and grey, and the first snowflakes began to fall. They slipped through the branches of the oak trees and settled upon moss. As the snow thickened, it lay silently on the forest floor. The old oak trees were undeterred. They had much resilience and was used to the weather's temperament, and by the afternoon paths had disappeared. This, however, did not deter Mabel's loyal friends, and by 3 p.m. Christmas Eve there was quite a queue outside the tea room, whose chimney smoke curled, carrying the warm scent of cinnamon, orange peel and good cheer into the cold air of the forest. Its inviting scents and promise of hope had enticed the woodland folk out from their burrows and trees, like a secret that had grown tired of being kept. The woodland folk arrived with such generosity, for it was Christmas Eve, and tonight was the gift exchange gathering. Hootington the owl drifted in with sugar mice, with raisin eyes and licorice tails. Bramble the hedgehog brought gifts of berry-studded bread. Satchwell the badger gifted ginger root biscuits in the shape of human folk that exist only in legend. Foxglove the fox, after shaking snow from her tail, presented fragrant pine and holly bundles to bring resilience and protection to the woodland folk. And the field mice came together, carrying a jar of summer honey they'd saved especially for this evening. Inside, the bell over the door chimed whenever someone slipped in from the cold, carrying with them the scent of damp earth, resin, and a faint hint of sweetness. The woodland nook glowed brighter with every arrival. A pot of spiced apple juice, with cinnamon sticks and cloves bobbing around it, bubbled on the stovetop. Mabel served it up in warm teacups on mismatched saucers, steam rising from the cups. It provided the much-needed warmth to thaw out the woodland folk. Alongside this were freshly baked mini star-topped mince pies and fluffy whipped cream, the smell of which were rich, spicy and comforting. A little sweet pick-me-up to start off the festivities. Bramble warmed her hands on a teacup, whilst Foxglove tucked herself cosily into a nook in the corner, near to the open fire, where she continued to knit some festive mittens. She positioned herself as such, so that the heat from the crackling open fire was enough to unthaw her paws, but not enough to singe her bushy tail. Snow tapped softly at the windows as carols drifted into the forest. The woodland folk loved to sing carols, steeped in comforting tradition, their voices curling around mossy roots and winding themselves around the old oak trees of the forest. The forest felt rooted in tradition and swayed a little more from side to side in the gentle, frosty breeze. Their spirits were high and festive cheer was in the air, and the warmth of their songs took the chill off the cold night, settling on oak trees, evergreens, burrows and fence posts like powdered sugar. The forest was quiet, in the way only winter can manage, silent but full of listening. When the last song faded, teacups full of spiced cocoa were handed out. Mabel tapped her spoon against her teacup. "Let's raise a teacup and share thanks," she said. And as the teacups clinked, all of the woodland folk gave gratitude for this moment and for togetherness. The night had felt generous, but now it was time for the woodland folk to return back to their homes. Hootington was carrying only the sugar mouse's tail in his beak, whilst Bramble put on her fur-trimmed cloak, to which she pinned her pine and holly bundle. Thatchwell wrapped himself up in a long red scarf and hummed carols from his cinnamon-sweet breath. Foxglove put on her knitted mittens, each one bearing a little Christmas tree, and the field mice placed tiny Santa hats on their heads, their lovely pink ears poking out at the sides. Upon the woodland folks' departure, Mabel handed them all an orange, each one studded with cloves from her woven wicker basket, for good luck and protection, for warmth and to welcome the return of the sun, she said to them. And with that, the woodland folk stepped out into the cold night once more. The snowflakes were dancing in the starlight, and the snow lay like a path of shimmering glitter before them underneath the moon's light. But inside them, the woodland animals felt nothing but warmth of love, kindness, and friendship that filled their hearts so full, and for the generosity of the gifts that they had received, for community and for festive cheer. And this feeling was the feeling they carried with them onwards into the night on their journeys home. As Mabel closed the door behind them, she swept away the crumbs from the red and white gingham tablecloths that lined the tree stump tables. She held some of the crumbs in her hand. Looking down at them, she paused. She couldn't help but smile at the thought of everyone's laughter this Christmas Eve, of the shared stories of winters past, knowing that the beauty of such events is to build community and memories for each of the woodland folk that lasts a lifetime, knowing that next year they can talk about this Christmas Eve as they take a bite from their star-topped mince pies, sharing old and creating new memories, and always leaving behind a trail of the yet untold until next year. Thank you for taking the time to listen and for being here with me. Wishing you a very happy Christmas and a happy New Year.